Let's get into it, because it's been a very interesting season for you, and it came to a close earlier this month, and the championship was won by your man Max Verstappen, who joins Prost and Vettel as a 4-time champion. Now that is amazing. Where does he sit for you, Christian? You know the sport inside out. Where does he sit for you amongst the greats of the sport?
Christian drops some unbelievable behind-the-scenes insight in this interview on both Max and his thoughts on next season. This is not one to miss.
I think he joins that group now. I think he really is one of the greats when you talk about him in the company that he's now with the Prosts. You know, he's now exceeded what Ayrton Senna achieved, and there's very few that have gone on to achieve, you know, more. Schumacher, Hamilton, and obviously Fangio. So he's an incredible talent. He's still evolving. He's still getting better. I think this year was arguably his strongest year, because we didn't have the strongest car this year for you know, certainly elements of the season. You know, we were a little bit on the back foot, and he's delivered incredibly consistently, and really punched above his weight. So yeah, an incredible season from him.
Is it down to the brilliance of Verstappen, or is it down to, you say the car wasn't quite where you wanted it to be? Is it down to the brilliance of the car?
Well, look, it's a combination of factors, like all these things. But and we started the season really well. We came out of the blocks, and we won 7 out of the first 10 races. But you know, the opposition started coming back at us from sort of the late spring. McLaren started to get performance on their car, then Ferrari and Mercedes. And it was a tough few summer months for us, as suddenly, you know, the developments that we were bringing to the car weren't adding the performance that we wanted, and Max was having to drive the wheels of it to keep himself, you know, in contention and in control of that championship. And then at the back end of the year, we managed to get some more performance on the car and some big wins. I mean, in Brazil with Max was outstanding, and then more recently in Qatar.
Max Verstappen's consistency, even when the car wasn't perfect, shows his true greatness. Who else could deliver under such pressure? Every season, he proves he's not just a champion, he's shaping the future of F1.
I mean, they put their bodies through it, Simon. I think I read that they have to have extraordinary levels of fitness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I listened to Ross Brawn talk about it recently when he had an evening over in the city, and he was talking about the evolution of the Brawn team and ultimately the journey of drivers and the technological advances. And that sort of stuff really interests me, because it's intriguing to see what people go through. And you look at, I mean, back in the day, of course, I liked James Hunt, and I liked Damon Hill, and I liked Prost, and I liked Nelson Piquet and the controversies that went with it. It feels like lots of sport that F1 has become a little bit more sanitised than when you got back in the day, when you saw Hunt the Shunt, or you saw these sort of people that were around that were of a personality. But listen, it's a brilliant sport. I mean, what Bernie did with the sport, the Silvio Berlusconi School of Management, which is basically own things in a certain way, was brilliant and challenging in its own merit. But it's an intriguing sport in lots of ways.
I think so. And Christian, I think we've got you quite a poignant moment, because breaking team news this morning, Sergio Perez has now left you. Yep. Okay, we might get into that. And in comes Liam Lawson. What happened to Perez? What happens in a situation like that? I mean, in football terms, so-and-so has been sacked. Like, Russell Martin's been sacked at Southampton. Gary O'Neill's lost his job at Wolves. Is he sacked? No,
it's a little different to that. I mean, Sergio's been with us for 4 years, and you know, the first 3 years he played a huge role in the team, and certainly in that first Drivers' World Championship. You've only got to think back to Abu Dhabi 21, the role that he played for the team on that day. Constructors Champions in 22, 23. He was second in the World Championship in the Drivers last year. He's just had a really tough year this year, and we sat down last week. We'd obviously been talking about it a little bit beforehand, and decided that it was right for both of us just to, you know, to step back, for him to step out of the car, take a bit of time with his family, you know, work out, you know, what he wants to do. He's still going to be you know, involved with the team. He'll be doing a couple of show runs with us during next year, but you know, it was right for him, because it wasn't enjoyable for him either, getting all this scrutiny and pressure and expectation every weekend.
But he'd signed a new contract in June last year.
He had signed a new contract, but of course in those contracts
for 2 years
there are, you know, I'm not going to go into the details of the contract, but inevitably there are stipulations that there are obligations between the team and the driver. So anyway, we sat down and we talked it through. And at that point in time, it's about relationships. And we've always had a great relationship with Sergio.
I see.
F1's evolution is fascinating. Drivers are now athletes in the truest sense. But how much does the pressure impact their mental game? Max Verstappen's ability to thrive under such intense scrutiny and expectations is a testament to his resilience. Could other drivers step up in the same way when the pressure builds?
But did he come up short in terms of performance?
I think
you guys demand the best.
By his own admission, I mean, he was 280 points behind his teammate this year. We lost the Constructors' Championship by just over 70 points. So he knew that by his own high standards, it wasn't achieving what he wanted or what we needed as a team. So we just had a grown-up discussion about it, and he's a great guy, and he'll go away, work out what he wants to do. Maybe he'll want to come back to the sport in maybe next year even.
A grown-up discussion. That's the sort of thing that you would say. That
footballers.
When something comes to an impasse, you have to have a grown-up discussion.
I was going to ask Christian, is it difficult to keep a lid on drivers and their outbursts and their expectations and their way that they public face? Having owned a football club, I watch players and sometimes watching them talk about things and thinking, well, there's a party line here. There's a way to operate. There's a way to speak. And these sportsmen have now become economic islands in their own right because they're financially so well remunerated. For you as a team principal, is it difficult to keep them in line with the central messaging when they see things that they're not happy with? The car might not be where they want it to be. A particular event in a Grand Prix might not have gone the way they wanted to do. Is that a challenge for you guys?
Well, of course, to a degree. I mean, our sport is a little bit different because it isn't so open to the media. The drivers are talking before they get in the car on the grid. Yeah. Everything that they say when they're in the car, the emotions that they're going through in the car, they as soon as they open that radio, it's broadcast to billions of people. I'm sure that football players are making comments on the field that perhaps they wouldn't want, broadcast. The cameras don't end up in the changing rooms or at the halftime, talks with a coach or the manager. And in our industry, part of the benefit is that access, but part of the downside is that these guys, they're not robots, and of course emotions are running high, and the first thing they do when they take a crash helmet off, they've got a microphone stuffed under their nose, and so of course occasionally emotion boils over. That's only natural.
F1's unique access to drivers means their emotions and reactions are often on full display, which can be both a benefit and a challenge. Drivers like Max Verstappen have mastered the art of managing that pressure, but it's not always easy to keep emotions in check when things don't go as planned.
Can you win? I mean, I had this conversation with AP McCoy about horse racing. Can you win a world championship by being a really good driver but having an average car?
I think you've always got to have the combination of of both. It's Formula One's the biggest team sport in the world, and of course the driver is a key element. But within the team, there's approximately 1,000 people that are all having to do their job and their role, and so it's a combination of factors. But the driver is your biggest variable, and for sure, right. For sure. And so a driver like Max is just able to extract that much more from the car, from the performance, and with the level of experience he has now, he reads a race so well. He's often commenting to us about what's going on in the race because he's seeing it on the big screen as he's driving around. He'll ask what happened in the pit stop with Hamilton. Yeah. And you think, well, how the hell did he see that? Yeah. Because he's 25 seconds behind him, and he's seen it on the screen. So the spare capacity that he has whilst driving, that's what's truly impressive.
Right. Christian, you're chief exec of Red Bull, so you're one of the main men. Top boss. Sergio Perez gone. In comes Liam Lawson. Yeah. Do you have the final say? Yeah, let's go for Liam. Or how does it work?
Well, look, there's a process. We all have shareholders. So of course you make a recommendation, and the shareholders have always been tremendously supportive and and back that. So Liam's a product of our junior team. He's a young talent that we took on 6 years ago and have nurtured him through the lower formula, and
an academy player.
He's exactly, and as we did with Sebastian Vettel, as we have done with Max, and I think that we're seeing in him a character and a robustness to deal with the pressure of being Max's teammate. He's only done 11 Grand Prix, but what he's shown in those 11 Grand Prix has impressed us, the engineering staff, and of course the scrutiny that he will be under as Max's teammate.
Choosing a new driver is never easy, especially when stepping into a role next to someone like Max Verstappen. But Liam Lawson's impressive progress through Red Bull's junior team shows he's ready for the challenge. Despite limited experience, his maturity and character give us confidence he can handle the intense scrutiny of being Max's teammate.
So what you're looking for in Liam is somebody that's going to, if you like, compliment, not verbally, but you know what I'm going with it, compliment someone like Verstappen, who is the big name.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you liken it to football, you can't have two centre forwards. You know, you've got to have you've got to have strength and depth in your team, and I think that Liam, with the experience that he has in coming into the team, is there to provide that strength and depth in what we need from an engineering perspective, from a tactical perspective, because it's going to be tight next year. You've got Ferrari that'll have Hamilton and Leclerc, two very strong drivers. You've got Norris and Oscar Piastri in McLaren.
These must be buggers of relationships to manage, though, aren't they? Because you've got two drivers that are competing to be the number one. You've got one that starts as number one, someone coming up behind them. You've got personalities amongst them. In a football team, you've got people that know they're going to get games, they know they're going to be rotated, they know they're going to play in different times, different opportunities, and create opportunities for themselves. In your sport, you've got two alpha males competing for one real predominant spot. That must be quite a difficult relationship and dynamic to manage. And hoping that they actually get on with one another, and perhaps they've got to sacrifice things for one another to be able to achieve outcomes for the team.
I think that there's contradicting aspects with that, because on the one hand you've got the team, and the drivers are contractors to the team.
Yeah.
On the other side, you've got the drivers' championship, where the interest and the individual interest. Now we're perhaps slightly different to other teams, where we go, do you know what? And it's about communication, being upfront with the drivers. Max Verstappen is the most valuable asset in Formula One. He's our lead driver.
Managing the relationships between drivers is tricky, especially when there's such an intense focus on one key player. But Red Bull's strategy of open communication and clear role definitions appears to work in their favor. By emphasizing teamwork and ensuring everyone understands their position, they manage to keep the drivers focused on the bigger picture.
He goes first.
If you can get close to him, fantastic. But the reality is the expectation is for Max to win.
Yeah.
A team like Ferrari, for example, next year are going to have two drivers that are going to be taking points off each other. And which horse do you back? Mm-hmm. You have to back both of them, but that sometimes becomes divisive within a team. So different teams have different approaches to how they
Christian,
go racing.
it's fascinating. So many messages coming in. We have a whole load of F1 enthusiasts listening to you this morning. Here's a cheeky one. Verstappen, his fourth title? No, it's only 3 because Lewis got robbed. Many messages coming in, but many very complimentary messages about the ability of Max Verstappen. Complimentary about you as well. Christian Horner is with us. Stay with us. Mr. Horner, of course, CBE. We're going to get to your questions shortly. Christian's a busy man this morning, but I very, very quickly tried to persuade him to stay on an extra 10 minutes, so we're going to get some of your questions to Christian before he goes.
Didn't get any choice, did he?
And he very kindly agreed.
Didn't get any choice, did you,
because
mate?
unlike Simon, I'm very polite with my approach, Christian, and you know what you're getting. You know what I mean. I never managed any race car magazine, but is Octane still?
You can just about manage yourself, mate.
Very true. Is it still in the shops? Can I buy a copy of Octane,
yes,
or is it now defunct?
No, it's not defunct.
No.
But I sold it and made quite a bit of money out, so I don't really care.
So you're laughing anyway. Christian, let me put this to you, and I'm kind of stealing it from another questioner. 2022-23, your team won the Constructor Championships, but this year you finished 3rd.
Yeah.
Overtaken by McLaren and Ferrari. So the closing of the gap, if you like, is that more down to a reduction from Red Bull or improvements by your rivals?
I think when you've got stable regulations like we've had, you get convergence. Ideas converge, the cars converge. And we set ourselves up with 2023, where we won 22 out of 23 races. That was always going to be impossible to replicate. So this year we won 9 races. That's 3 more than any other team. We had 8 pole positions and we won 4 of the sprint races, which was more than any other team achieved. But the collective points of both cars in the constructors, we were only able to finish 3rd. And that was obviously frustrating for the team, for the workforce, and that's why we've decided to change things around a little bit for 2025.
Red Bull's strategy and results speak volumes. Despite the challenges, their team's consistent performance, including multiple race wins and sprint victories, reinforces their strength in the sport. The team's ability to adapt and recalibrate for 2025 signals that they aren't resting on their laurels. They're focused on staying ahead of the competition.
I mean, it's really down to just how good a driver Max Verstappen is. He's won 4 in the bounce. Does that become a problem in terms of engagement amongst the F1 audience, that at some point you've got somebody here who's so dominant that they're almost looking for someone to take over the mantle?
You get that in any sport. Nobody likes serial winning, and what we've had,
except the winners, of course.
Except the winners, and what we've had this year, we've had 7 different winners. 7 drivers have won more than a race. Lewis won 2, George Russell won 2, the McLaren drivers won, the Ferrari drivers both won. So that increases the intrigue, and so the interest in this year's championship was off the charts, and I think that will carry through into 25 because it's the last year of these regs. The cars have converged. You've got 4 teams that are going to be very close with each other, and it's going to be about all those marginal gains, about getting it right on the day across those 24 races.
The level at which they perform. I think you and I spoke about the movie Senna we've seen, which was absolutely amazing. Unless you're actually there and you see how fast they're driving. I mean, at times, Christian, it sounds like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it. Even someone like yourself, do you step back and you think, what am I watching?
Look, I mean, these drivers are incredible, and you've only got to see a Grand Prix car live to see the energy of it, the speed of it. It's like any live sport. I think until you see it live, you can't really appreciate the skill that's involved, and the ability these drivers have to be not only driving the cars but talking, thinking about strategy, managing tires, managing all these different aspects within the car. It's very, very impressive.
Is it still as dangerous as ever? I mean, thankfully, touch wood, wherever there is wood in this studio, we don't hear of high-speed crashes nowadays.
Well, the crashes are still there, but the technology has improved. And as you say, touch wood, the safety record has been strong. And that's the great work being done behind the scenes by the FIA, the governing body, to continue pushing the safety standards forward. But they're still, these cars are doing up to 280 miles an hour. Quite often on street circuits where you're racing through, concrete with concrete barriers and walls. So there is always going to be an element of danger, but the cars have made massive steps over the last 20 years.
Christian's insight into the incredible skill of Formula One drivers underscores the extraordinary demands of the sport. These drivers are not only navigating some of the world's fastest cars, but also managing multiple complex aspects of racing, including strategy, tire management, and communications. The sport's complexity, mixed with the risk, makes it not just a spectacle, but a testament to the skill required to succeed at the highest level.
Are these guys absolutely fearless?
They have to be. They have to be, and they have to be able to detach themselves from that fear. Otherwise, you would never get in one of these cars. I mean, they are rocket ships.
How do they actually get on? I mean, I'll ask you in a second what you may or may not expect from Lewis Hamilton. But does Verstappen actually get on with Hamilton, or can they see each other far enough?
They're 2 very different people. I mean, they are different personalities, different characters. I think there's a respect, and that's the most important thing. Are they the type of people that would spend Christmas together? Probably not. I mean, Max has other friendships in Formula One. Lando Norris is a good pal of his. They've travelled to many races, but inevitably that gets put under pressure when you're competing. Is Tyson Fury going to be mates with his opponent this weekend?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe after the fight, but certainly not in the build up to it.
Sure.
Christian's perspective on Verstappen and Hamilton's relationship highlights the reality of competition at the highest levels. While the 2 are incredibly different personalities, the respect they share is crucial. Rivalries in sports often push competitors apart off the track, but as Christian points out, they don't need to be friends to be highly effective and successful in their roles. Respect, rather than friendship, drives the intensity of their competition.
We have many questions coming in. It's kind of you, Christian, because it's a great opportunity to put some of them to you. There's one straightforward one. I love Verstappen, it says Tom, who's a big F1 fan. Can Christian see anything other than Verstappen carrying on where he left off with a 4th title? Is it almost inevitable he's looking at a 5th?
No, nothing's inevitable. We've got to go out and earn it. But we've got a great team. He's driving better than ever. And we're going to have to raise our game again, because when you're at the top, you're there to be shot at. And that's what all the other teams are trying to do, and we'll be trying to get that trophy off us next year. But motivation's never been higher. The determination within the team has never been higher. So it'll be an exciting year next year.
Do you enjoy it more than ever?
I still love it. I still get a buzz that I had when I started this role, over 20 years ago. So that moment when the lights go out and it's just you and your team and your drivers, for me, that is the biggest, the buzz that you can that you can get out of the sport. And what you've still got, it's down to the passion at the end of the day. If you love what you do, you do it that bit better.
So fierce rivals, but Verstappen won't be spending Christmas with Hamilton. That's not like you and I, because you and I obviously see each other on Christmas morning. Then
why are you my rival then?
Watch Markham and Wise later in the day. So many of you firing in questions. 81089 for those. Christian very kindly has decided to stay on with us, because he obviously has a kindred spirit in Simon, being a huge F1
indeed
enthusiast.
You can tell, can't you?
Enthusiast. And Christian, just I wasn't going to mention this live on air, but we were talking during the break. To see it is to believe it and take it in. Simon and I know I'm speaking for him and I can do this, we will come to
fantastic. You're welcome anytime.
A major race.
Should do. We might convert you.
Christian's dedication to the sport remains unwavering, even after 2 decades. The passion and buzz he feels when the lights go out on race day are what fuel his success. His team's focus on continuous improvement and maintaining that edge shows how critical the human element of passion is to reaching and staying at the pinnacle of Formula One.